Some projects seem to fly off the needles, almost without you noticing the hours pass. And others, they just sit there, quietly waiting for their turn. Patiently, untouched, but still full of promise. I think every knitter knows that gentle tug of a project calling you back. And sometimes picking it up again feels like slipping into a familiar rhythm you didn't realize you'd missed. Hi, and welcome to my knitting podcast. My name is Mari, and I'm a knitter and maker based in beautiful Bergen. Here, I sew, knit, and create garments that bring me joy and fit seamlessly into my life. For me, patterns are more suggestions than rules. I love tweaking them to make garments that suit my life and wardrobe. I love giving patterns that little twist, changing the construction, adjusting the shape, swapping out yarns, or adding a personal detail that make the final piece feel like me. My hope is that through this podcast, I can share my process with you and maybe even give you permission to break a few rules yourself. Whether you're a seasoned knitter or just picking up your first pair of needles, I want this space to feel like sit down with a crafty friend. In this episode, we'll go over 4 whips, including one that has not been getting a lot of love the past 2 weeks, and some new acquisitions. But before we jump into this episode, I just want to pause for a moment and say thank you. Truly, I was honestly a little nervous about sharing my reflections on size inclusivity the last episode, and the response? Well, it moved me. So many of you reached out to say that it resonated, that you felt seen, or that it mirrored your own experience. And I'm just really grateful. Thank you for being here and for making this a little space that feels kind and welcoming. Since there's quite a few newbies here, I want to say welcome. I thought I'll take a moment to introduce myself, just a little. My name is Mari. I live in Bergen on the west coast of Norway, surrounded by fjords and mountains, and most of the time, a very steadily drizzle of rain. I'm originally from Oslo, and I'm just turning 34. I work with numbers, accounting, and finance, which might sound a bit rigid, but I've always found comfort in structure and form. And this year has been a big one for me. I got married this spring to the love of my life. We also bought an old, very charming house that we're slowly renovating. It's a project that's testing both our patience and our creativity, but also filling our days with hope and vision. I've started a new channel called Life by Mari, where I'm documenting our journey, not just the house, but the whole new season of life. It's about crafting a home, life, and a future with purpose, one moment and one project at a time. If that sounds like your kind of thing, I'd love to have you over there too. I started knitting back in 2016, in the middle of writing my master's thesis. Classic me, I dove straight into a complex colorwork cardigan using yarn that in hindsight was completely wrong for the project. That cardigan never got finished, but I learned a lot. These days, I design many of the patterns I knit myself. That's where my love of numbers, colors, and form really comes together. And maybe one day I'll be brave enough to share them more formally. But for now, I'm just happy that you're here. So settle in and let's get into today's episode. Today I'm wearing an old favorite, a knitted t-shirt I made in the early COVID days. Back then I went through a little phase of making tops that flared gently out from the waist. Looking at it now, I still understand why. It's such a flattering, easy silhouette and one I feel really comfortable in. The lace pattern around the bottom was something I improvised, and I still love how it turned out. In fact, I'm planning to use the same pattern as the edging for the sleeves and neckline in one of my current projects, but we'll come back to that later in the episode. The color is also one I adore. It's no coincidence that it's almost exactly the same color of purple I used for the first swatch of my wedding dress. There's something about this lilac that feels so fresh and hopeful, like the first real spring day after a long winter. For this top, I used Retrosaria Mondim, though I couldn't find this exact shade on their website anymore, so I suspect it might have been discontinued. But if you haven't heard of Mondim before, it's a non-superwash fingering weight yarn made from fine Portuguese wool. It's named after a small village in Portugal famous for its sock knitting, and I love that little connection to tradition. The real reason why I keep coming back to this yarn though is how it feels in the hands. It's woolly and rustic in the best way, but still soft and easy to wear. No scratchiness, no stiffness. The tight spin gives such beautiful stitch definition. Perfect for textured patterns like this, where lace and texture meets. The lace looks crisp and clear, and the fabric still has that gentle bounce that only a good wool can give. This yarn is definitely a favorite, and we'll talk a little bit more about Mondim when we get into my works in progress. To my first work in progress, I have the Venilia Tee. The Venilia Tee by Sari Nordlund feels like summer in every possible way. It's light, airy, and beautifully effortless. It's a top-down tee with a delicate lace yoke that gives just the right amount of detail without feeling fussy. The lace was what caught my eye immediately. Soft, structured, and timeless. It's the kind of design that takes a simple tee and quietly turns it into something special. What I love most about it is how easy I can imagine wearing it all summer long. The relaxed shape is flattering without being clingy, and the short row shaping at the back gives it that gentle, well thought out fit that sits so comfortably on the body. I can see it layered over dresses for cooler evenings or tucked loosely into trousers for those easy, slow summer mornings. The yarn I'm using is the Retrosaria Mondim, dyed by Bien Aimée. It's a non-superwash fingering weight wool from Portugal. It's tightly spun with beautiful stitch definition. That means the lace in this yoke really pops. But the fabric still has that natural bounce to it. And this colorway, it's basically my yarn soulmate. It's beautiful but grounded with just enough punch. I already have 2 sweaters featuring this shade, my beloved Zweig and a brioche fade. So I know it's going to be one of those colors I reach for again and again. As for my progress, well, I'd admit that this project has been sitting a little bit in the shadows of my Isabella Sweater lately. There have been a few lovely evenings that have been the perfect thing to pick up. I've been looking forward to getting back into the flow of it. The last time I filmed, I have just finished the lace yoke and worked a small section of stockinette. My goal this round was to separate for the sleeves and make some headway on the body. I'm happy to say that I've done that, and I've also completed the short rows, which feels like a little milestone in itself. I have tried it on and I found that the neckline is quite wide, but it gives a really lovely fit, and I'm also really happy about how it sits around my waist. I did make a small modification here. I added more short rows than the pattern called for. I like a top that sits a little higher at the back of the neck and then slopes gently forward, so it rests nicely across the shoulders without slipping back. It's a subtle change, but it makes all the difference in how the garments feel when you wear it. There's something so satisfying about separating for the sleeves and moving on to the body. That's when the knitting starts to feel lighter, both literally and in terms of motivation. The rounds go faster, the shape becomes clearer, and you can actually see it turning into a wearable piece. From here, my aim is simple, just to keep working down the body. Finding that easy rhythm. I haven't set a specific goal for the next episode, but I'd love to have made enough progress that it really starts to feel like a finished tee in the making. And if you're working on something similar, I hope you know that little spark of joy when you piece past the sleeve divide and it's just you, your yarn, and the promise of the fabric growing round by round. My second work in progress this week is the Slanting Slipover. A rustic yet elegant vest with these beautiful graphic lines that sweep across the shoulders and down the sides, finishing in understated little side slits at the hem. It's the kind of piece that balances structure with softness, timeless shape, but with just enough visual interest to feel fresh. I want to acknowledge something up front. This pattern only goes up to 112 centimeters or a 44-inch bust. I have the skill to modify patterns for my own body, but I do believe size-inclusive design should be the standard. Everyone deserves knits that fit and feel good. Going forward, I will be prioritizing and supporting designers who offer inclusive sizing as the norm. I still share my modifications and I will knit this vest because I know they might be helpful for others, but I want to use this space to reflect and celebrate all bodies, not just some. I did go over my reasoning for this in the latest episode. Check that out if you haven't already. The construction is top down, starting at the collar, and you cast on stitches for the shoulders, work some short rows to gently shape the upper body, and then knit the front and back separately until the armhole is done. After that, you can join the body and the round before splitting at the hem for those side slits. I am doing a few personal tweaks. I have doubled the collar for a slightly weightier and more polished look. I have also decided to keep the sides open, fastening them with a single large button under each arm, just enough to hold the shape, but still gives the garment some movement. To get my size in this pattern, I need to add up to 20% to the largest size. I carry most of my weight in my hips and belly, so I only added 5% extra stitches at the top. So now that I'm around the armhole, I need to add the other 15% to get my size. I am going with the open side. That meant adding some overlapping between the front and back sections. So along the armhole increases, I also added some increases along the edges. About 7 extra stitches to give me that space for that button, and it actually also gives me the extra ease I need over my hips. If I hadn't gone for this open side idea, I've needed to increase differently, probably starting earlier than the pattern suggests and adding some more extra round of increases before the armholes. But if you, like me, carry more width around your hips, I recommend putting some of the increases after the armholes. This gives you a cleaner fit across the bust while still making room where you need it. After I finish this vest, I will make a more in-depth tutorial on how to adjust any pattern for a larger body, so make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss that one. For yarn, I am using Isager Aran Tweed in a soft grey sprinkled with colorful little flecks, confetti against the wool. It's a single ply, 100% wool with a natural, slightly rugged texture. I've been so inspired lately by other knitting working with these tweedy yarns, like aka Nora Knits' gorgeous long cardigan in Nora Madara, and E-Knit's beautifully grey vest and a similar flecked yarn from Junction Fiber Mill. And I really wanted to bring some of that same joy into my wardrobe. This yarn is spun and dyed in Ireland. It's about 160 meters per 100 grams. And while it's rustic, it's not scratchy. It's that satisfying sheepy feels in the hands, and it works beautifully for these texture stitches. And just before we move on, again, I want to say thank you for all the kind response after my reflections on size inclusivity that I shared the last episode. It really meant so much. This slipover will be the last non-size inclusive pattern I feature here. This is not to punish designers, especially not smaller ones, who may struggle to find testers in every size, but because I want this to be a space where everyone feels included and highlight designers who prioritize to design patterns for everybody. My next whip is the Isabella Sweater. The Isabella Sweater is a project that feels very close to my heart. Partly because I'm designing it myself, and partly because it's built on years of refining my own knitting structure. Behind the scenes, I have this little secret weapon. It's a form of a spreadsheet I've developed over time. It's filled with my most used gauges and shaping formulas, along with tiny adjustments that help me turn a set of numbers into a sweater that truly fits my body. For this design, I've gone with a classic raglan. It's a construction I turn to again and again because it's flexible, it's familiar, and it's easy adaptable. It gives me space to focus on the details, how the neckline sits, how the increases are distributed, and how the fabric shapes around my body. I don't follow the standard increase every other round rule. I have added some extra increases for the body at the very start to give myself a room where I need it without sacrificing the fit in the shoulders and sleeves. For the neckline, I worked it flat, which creates a slightly more open front and a gentle lift at the back. It's a shape I find both flattering and comfortable. The yarn is Helix by Bien Aimée in the colorway Lisa. It's a rich, deep pink with burgundy undertones and tiny gray accents. The base blends with wool, which gives it both a beautiful luster and a light, airy hand. It's a color and quality that feels sophisticated but still easy to wear every day. The last time I shared an update, I had just separated for the sleeves and was about halfway down the body. Enough to try it on and really check out the fit. Since then, I've made some great progress both on one of the sleeves and the body. And I've also actually picked up stitches along the collar, and I'm ready to add that special detail, the lace collar, where I actually am planning to use this lace motif. So I'm really excited by that. I've actually decided not to go with the contrasting collar and cuffs, but sticking with the same color. I think that will give a cleaner look. Because this is my own design, I'm following my plan closely. And that's actually its own kind of challenge. But I'm sticking to it, no last minute improvising. I need to see if there is anything that might need refining, if the pattern is ever to be shared to other people. Stockinette can look simple, and it is. But it requires more patience than you might expect. My best tip, if you're working on something similar and you feel yourself in a bit of a rut, is to knit a little every day. Even a few rounds at a time will help the project grow steadily, and then you will get those little bursts of satisfaction along the way. Right now, I'm finishing the body towards the hem ribbing, while also starting at the top sections of the sleeves. I am knitting sleeves in parallel to keep my momentum up. Once I reach the elbows, I'll start the design element that I'm also knitting at the collar, this lace work. It may not be moving at record speed, but it's growing, and that steady sense of progress at any pace is one of the reasons I love this project so much. I can't wait to share more of those little details that are starting to take shape, because that is when the Isabella Sweater will truly show its personality. My last whip is the Diona Tee, and the Diona Tee really ticks all the boxes for me. It's light, it's elegant, and it strikes that perfect balance between clean simplicity and beautiful details. What makes this design stand out is the way the cable motif flows down both the front and the back, adding just the right amount of texture and visual interest. The 2x2 ring-bing along the sides and sleeves keeps everything neat and balanced, giving the tee a structure yet relaxed feel. It's one of those knits that looks intricate but feels completely effortless to wear. The kind of piece you can dress up or down and always feel good in. For yarn, I'm using a luxury silk and BFL blend from the Wool Kitchen. The silks adds this unmistakable sheen and drape, while the BFL brings strength and softness. I bought this at Edinburgh Yarn Fest back in 2019. So yes, it's been marinating in the stash for a while, and I think it's more than ready for its moment in the spotlight. The color is this soft blue with tiny coppery speckles that catches the light, and I think it's going to make this tee look so polished and refined. Now for the update, and this one is a quiet one. To be honest, the Diona Tee has been resting quite a bit lately. I haven't put much time into it, which really just means one thing. It's ready for me to give it more love moving forward. Because this is a project I truly enjoy, and I'm following the pattern exactly. With a detailed cable chart like this one, I find it's best to stick to the plan. Cables don't always appreciate too much improvisation if you want to preserve the flow of the design. And it's not the most travel-friendly summer knitting either. Complex charts aren't exactly ideal for a casual knitting on the go, especially when summers are filled with conversations, activities, and distractions. But that's also what makes it so satisfying when I do sit down with it. Watching what first looks like chaos on paper charts turning into something structured and beautiful. And this yarn makes those cables pop in the most satisfying way. One thing that this project as well has reminded me of is the value of steady, consistent knitting over long gaps rather than catch-up marathons. Even a little progress every day makes a difference, and it keeps the project feeling alive in your hands rather than distant on a shelf. I haven't made as much progress as I hoped on this one, but that is okay. Some knits just need more space and time to breathe. My plan from here is simple: to work my way calmly and steadily down the body, giving this tee the attention it deserves. I have a feeling it will be worth it. I wasn't planning on buying any more yarn. Truly, my stash is full of beautiful things, and I've been trying to work from what I already have. But you know how it goes. Sometimes a color just finds you, settles into your imaginations, and then somehow refuses to leave. And that's exactly what happened here. These two skeins came in the mail for me recently. They're completely different bases, textures, and personalities, but they share the same luminous green. It's a golden olive shade that feels like fresh matcha, moss, and filtered sunlight all at once. It has that earthy warmth, but also a brightness that makes it feel alive. I don't know exactly what they will become yet, but I do know they'll be together in some sweater. Something that balances softness with structure, playfulness with calm. I'm imagining a knit that feels grounded but joyful, maybe with a mix of smooth stitches and airy textures. The first yarn is Foa Foa Fingering in the color edition. The name means fluffy or soft in Japanese, and honestly, I've never met a yarn that embodies its name as perfectly as this. It feels like a gentle hug, all floof, air, and comfort. It's made from 70% brushed cashmere and 30% superwash merino, spun into the most cloud-like texture you can imagine. At 288 meters per skein, it's a fingering weight yarn, but it feels like it could almost float away if you set it down in a breeze. It's the kind of yarn that disappears into your skin, perfect for pieces you want to wear close, or layers that feel like a poof of air on your shoulders. The halo is just beautiful, giving it that dreamy, slightly blurred look, as if it has been loved for years. The second yarn is Moonspun, a collaboration between Moondrake Co. and Spin Cycle Yarn. It's also in the color Lesion. Where Foa is soft and whispery, Moonspun is vibrant, structured, and full of character. It has the same structure and spin as Spin Cycle's dyed in the wool, but it's hand-dyed in Moondrake's signature palette. It's bold, it's expressive, and unapologetically joyful. Moonspun is 100% American wool, or sourced from South Dakota and Wyoming. It's a sport weight yarn with 366 meters per 100 grams, and it feels wonderfully substantial in the hand. The colors are full of depth, warm undertones that make that green glow like early spring leaves. Even the simplest stitch will have movement and life. What I love most is how these two yarns speak to each other. The brushed softness of the Foa Foa will give that gentle, hazy texture, while Moonspun will bring definition, depth, and a little structure. Together, I think they'll create a fabric that's tactile and dimensional, a sweater that feels both relaxed and considered. I haven't landed on the exact design yet. Part of me is leaning towards something classic and wearable, maybe a simple raglan or saddle shoulder that lets the yarn do all of the talking. Another part of me is tempted to play with both shape and proportions. Whatever it becomes, I know it will be something that leans into softness, natural colors, and has that quiet joy of making something you know will be a part of your life for years. This color and this pairing just feels alive to me. I can't wait to see where it takes me, one stitch at a time. I hope that somewhere in today's episode you find a little spark, whether it was a yarn that makes your fingers itch to cast on, or a reminder that it's okay to put a project aside for a while, or simply the comfort of hearing from someone else who is figuring it out stitch by stitch. That's really what I want the space to be, a place where you can feel encouraged to knit what makes you happy and bend the rules until they fit, to let your project grow at their own pace. There's no wrong timeline here, no pressure to keep up, only the joy of making something that feels like yours. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'm also over at Instagram at Made by Mari, where I share more of my everyday moments, little progress updates, and behind the scenes parts of my project that don't always make it into the podcast. It's the best place to chat with me. I love to hear what's on your needles and seeing the things that you're creating. If you're curious about big personal knitting projects, I think you'll enjoy this video, where I take you through the whole process of designing, knitting, and sewing my own wedding dress. From the very first swatch to the final stitches, it was a journey full of lessons, surprises, and more than a few moments where I thought, what have I gotten myself into? Until next time, keep knitting what brings you joy.